Hello, I'm Simon. I'm Simon Henderson. I'm your longevity coach. I work with over 40 liberal men to extend their life and health. And this is my video on the unifying theory of longevity. So, what is the state of longevity? Basically, we live in a society that glorifies youth and beauty. And here are some pictures, for example, for proof. But the reality is that the world population, particularly in the Western world, is steadily aging. We live in an aging world. And while, most of the population is growing older, like this kind of the bubble of the most of the people in the society is kind of progressively getting older. We've got all the boomers, Gen X, and millennials will be next, aging out, as they say. And we're living longer than ever before as well. So we've got a longer living aging population. And so we're not dying as often as we used to of things like infections or violence or in childbirth, although that may be changing with laws in America stopping abortion and medical care for women. So, maybe. But these extra years are spent in old age and poor health. We're not living an extra 20 years in our 30s. We're living an extra 20 years like in the state we are in our 70s, 80s, 90s, right? And we've moved from dying more quickly of things like heart attacks or strokes or cancer to actually living with chronic diseases over much longer periods of time. So the quality's not there. We've got the length, but we're not living quality years. So what's the goal? So medicine is beginning to target the treatment or the prevention, I should say, of these chronic conditions. They've been keeping you alive for longer with the disease, right? So if you have Alzheimer's, they slow it down. They don't stop you getting Alzheimer's. So you've still got Alzheimer's. Maybe you're dealing with the symptoms a bit more. But medicine's starting to change so that it's actually stopping us getting these diseases in the first place. But I believe that by living with intention and prioritizing our well-being now, we can increase not just our lifespan, but the quality of years we live, right? And this is through a number of ways. I shall share them with you soon. But basically, my hope is that medicine will evolve and we will live long enough that we can actually cure, I don't know about all of these ailments of aging, but many of them and will increase the quality of life. I'm not sure we're going to be able to escape death, right? There's just too much going on in our bodies. Something's going to fail at some point. But the ideal would be that we live a long, healthy, happy life, and we die in our sleep surrounded by loved ones, right? That old cliche. That we get the more good years of health. So my aim is not just to live longer, but to live more fulfilling, healthy lives during these extended years. And I shall tell you a little bit more about that. So at the moment, there's no unifying theory of longevity. Yet, right? It's an emerging science. We're learning all the time. So there's no exact formula for how to do it. And everyone's different, right? So we need to kind of tailor it to ourselves. What we do know, though, is we can use these things: science, evidence, preferences. So what does the leading edge of science say about longevity? What can we learn and apply to our lives? From this cutting edge science. What about the evidence? The oldest living populations in the world. There's these blue zones. There's 5 blue zones around the world. What can we learn from these communities of people that have something like 5 times more centenarians in good health than the average population, right? So, and then how can we incorporate these learnings into our lives? And then we have to personalize it because we're all sort of weird humans and we've got particular likes and dislikes. And we might find out that, I don't know, broccoli is the best vegetable to eat for health and longevity. But if we don't like broccoli, we're not going to eat it, right? So we have to kind of tailor these things to our particular weird human experience because we're all a bit special, aren't we? So how do we live longer? We basically, well, this is my opinion, start with a strong base of natural health. So we need good nutrition, good sleep, sustainable exercise, supplementation mixed in there, stress management, and building good community, right? Community is one of the major things. Human connection is important. And then we have to optimize. So once we've got these basics, let's call them basics in place, the foundation, then we can get into sort of the advanced supplementation, the biohacking, the detoxification, the shadow work, and the self-mastery. Right? This is my view of it. And then improve. We're not going to try to be perfect right away, or maybe even at all. Right? It's more of a marathon than a sprint. And we need to be doing it in a way that we can do it for a long time, right? So, but it's about moving in the direction of improvement and not trying to be perfect, because we're not perfect. Humans are not perfect. In fact, we're kind of the perfect example of being imperfect. So how do we do this? I have what I call the hierarchy of longevity. It was 5 levels, and then I realized the missing ingredient was actually consciousness that wraps it. So I just put +1 because it's not a level, right? But we have this ethics and philosophy at the bottom of the pyramid. This for me is foundational, that we have to have good ethics for living. Otherwise, I don't know. Well, I don't want to work with the people that want to destroy the world that we live in for profit, for example, right? So we need good ethics. Maybe they'll find someone else to work with, but it's not going to be me. And a philosophy, why are we living longer, right? To achieve what? Then psychology and mindset, right? If we don't believe that we can live longer, we're probably unlikely to, right? In fact, it may be, it's a key to living longer, belief in it. And our mindset, right? We have to work with that. Then it's things like lifestyle interventions, lots of things we probably already know about, know we should be doing, and maybe are not doing. And that's why we need a coach sometimes to help me work this stuff out and nail it down and put good habits in place. Okay, on top of that is supplementation. And then finally, the peak of the pyramid is biohacking and therapeutics. And this is the kind of expensive, fancy, flashy stuff. But you can spend money on it. But if you don't have all this other stuff in place, it's a little bit of like a Band-Aid, wallpapering over the cracks, right? Building on sand, all these analogies, right? So here's another way of putting it. This is my Venn diagram of longevity. Is natural health, right? Science and consciousness. And the overlap is where longevity happens. So we need natural health as a kind of basis, a fundamental to how we're living. We need to eat good, clean food, natural, organic if we can, minimize things like processed foods and sweeteners and kind of chemicals and denatured stuff. We have to look after our body in a natural health way as a kind of foundation, right? Science, things like supplementation, biohacking, the things that kind of move the needle, but that are not going to do much if we don't have natural health, right? And consciousness, I really think that the only way we're going to live longer lives is through becoming more conscious, right? Because we have bad habits, what we need to deal with. We have addictive behavior. We all do. All have our phones and screens and stuff like that, right? We have the shadow we have to work with as well. These are my beliefs, right? And I will talk about them more in future videos. And another way of putting it is this: the 3 pillars of longevity, and this is the temple of longevity, right? And you need the 3 pillars to hold the roof up, otherwise it's going to collapse, like the Acropolis in Athens. It was just lying on the ground, because they hadn't maintained the temple. I thought about putting natural health in the middle, because without science and consciousness on the edges, you could kind of keep it balanced somehow, but it wouldn't take much to knock it over. So this is my way of putting, we need these 3 strong pillars to keep the roof up of longevity. And yeah, that's my opinion. I'll be talking about it more in other videos. There'll be another video after this. So if you take one thing away from this video, this is my summary. Remember, whether you work with me or somebody else, 'cause there are lots of other longevity coaches out there. You can't just take pills and expect to live forever, right? You can't just eat salad and do yoga, although not a bad start. You need a strong, solid base of ethics, philosophy, in my opinion. Promote good health, right, in a natural health approach. Deal with this damaging behavior and limiting beliefs if they impact your longevity, which I would say they do. If you have an active addiction, if you're smoking cigarettes, you're not extending your life. If you have a drinking problem, you're not extending your life. And you're also damaging lots of stuff around it, right? So we want to live long and happy. So all these foundational things first. Then we need to add longevity interventions and biohacks and therapeutics and supplementation on top of this. And then I think we need to wrap it all in becoming more conscious, because we have to deal with our stuff, right? So that was my view on how we're going to do it. A kind of, is it called a 10,000 foot view of longevity, that we need all these things in place to extend our lifespan and our health span and be happy while we're doing it. There are future videos where I will talk about the hows of it, and that's coming up right now. See you soon.